All right, everybody, welcome back here. I've been meaning to do this video kind of for the past week or two now, but holidays are all going on and everything. Been super busy with that, school, work, and everything. And the album review videos are shorter, kind of easier for me to knock out. And I also kind of wanted to rewatch some more of these movies in preparation for this. But if you can look at the title down there, you see what we're doing. We're doing an updated Hellraiser movie ranking that is including the new one that came out just this past month. So that leaves us with 11 movies now, and I believe I haven't watched back my my old Hellraiser ranking video to see if these match up with it or not. Like, for the most part, I'm pretty sure there's some changes in there that happened. Besides, of course, the addition of the new one. But I can't, don't quote me on it because I can't, I'm not basing it on the last video, I'm not trying to keep them the same as that or trying to change it. I'm just going, I rewatched a couple of these and kind of maybe shifted some around. And I've gone back and forth for a couple spots too that maybe some of them did stay the same. But I was like really tempted to kind of move, swap some spots there. But anyways, guys, of course, I got all these Hellraiser DVDs over here. Of course, the new one is not out on DVD yet. I guess we'll have to wait till, Hulu drops it off or whatever, until we get a physical release of that. But you bet your ass I'll be getting that as soon as it comes out. But with that being said, this should be no surprise. At rank number 11, come on, Hellraiser Revelations. My God, this is literally one of the worst movies I've ever freaking seen in my life. Like, it's that bad. And, this dude right here is Pinhead. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, As we'll see later on in the list, obviously everyone's going to prefer Doug Bradley as Pinhead. But I'm not opposed to, some of these newer people going that direction, which we'll talk about later. And being Pinhead. But this just did not work for me at all. This one, at the beginning, it kind of feels like, okay, this is going to be kind of like a Hellraiser movie. It kind of has that Hellraiser plot and everything, but, like, the acting is so bad. And, like, on another level of bad. And, and I'm not really a guy to, like, judge the acting. Really, like, in these slasher movies and stuff, it's corny, it's fun, but this is, like, so bad that it's beyond. I mean, then you get, the dude who's over here wanting to bang his sister. It's like, what the hell is going on in this thing? And then on top of that, it's pretty freaking boring, just one of the worst movies I have ever fucking seen, ever. And I've seen it twice, ever, and, which one being the first time I ever watched it, and the second time being the last time I did the ranking of these movies. So that should tell you. I just never ever come back to this thing if I don't have to. If I'm doing a rewatch through the whole series ever, I'll do it. Just for shits and giggles. But I just cannot stand this movie. All right, number 10. We're going with Hellworld. Evil Goes on the Line. This is the 8th entry in the series, and the last one with Doug Bradley as Pinhead. Now, and I'll say this, with anytime, even in, like, these bad movies, at least, Doug Bradley's Pinhead in them, and the scenes he's in are, he's a badass, just a bona fide badass, because that's what Doug Bradley brings to the Pinhead character. One of my favorite horror characters of all time, and, just the plot of this is really trying to be like meta, kind of like Scream, with like it being, it realizing what, like Hellraiser's a real thing, like it's an actual, film series and all that. So then you get, they're all these kids, I say kids, but they're probably, early 20s or whatever. But they're all, into this online game, and then one of their buddies dies, and then they go to this big party mansion that's hosted by the dude from Pumpkinhead in it, that main Lance Hendrickson or whatever, I think Lance Hendrickson, and which I like him as an actor, and he actually does pretty good in this. But you got Henry Cavill in one of his early films, and it's just it's pretty crazy seeing old Superman this young and in the Hellraiser movie. But anyways, yeah, the plot's just all over the place. It's like, okay, so Hellraiser's not real, but it is because these Cenobites are going crazy in here, in this house, killing them all. But then you're like, wait, it reveals at the end, oh, all these kids have been trapped in a coffin. And, and then they've just been drugged and have been talking to each other through phones in these coffins, and it's really weird. And then so you're like, okay, so none of that was real. But then Lance Henriksen's character gets confronted by Pinhead in the very final scene. So it's like, it's flip-flopping all over the damn place. It's, and I think it's even a weird concept, because I know this is one of the several entries in the series that, was just a recycled script. But, and even as just like a single script, that's just weird as hell, man. Not about this thing at all. Terrible movie. It has some decent kills in it or whatever, but like, this whole party mansion kind of thing, and just, I'm not into it. It's just a weird freaking movie. Weird time. Then we're going to go with number 9 being Deader. Man, talk about Pinhead barely being in the movie. I mean, maybe, I know he's in that incredible final scene where, the chains go through, like a train, through all those people and everything. And that's a really cool one. One of the coolest, kills in the series, really. But you gotta wait till the end of the freaking movie to see it. And to be fair, the concept of this one is pretty cool, right? I mean, you get like these cultists, Deader, who are kind of playing with life, saying they can bring each other back to life. And, that's, as we find out, that Pinhead, obviously, he doesn't like that. You're playing with life and death here. So once he figures out, that's where that ending thing happens. But, you got this, like, reporter girl, which has kind of been done in the 3rd entry. And she's, trying to investigate this whole thing. And, it gets kind of crazy. And it has some genuinely creepy scenes, like where they find that dead body in in that apartment. That looked pretty grotesque. It was pretty freaky. I'm like, ugh. But then, stuff just starts getting so damn confusing. Oh, she wakes up in a mental hospital. Is that real? Like, it just gets, like, too convoluted and pretty freaking boring. They're on that weird, like, midnight meat train kind of place, where all these people are hanging around in just like this giant orgy on this train. And it's strange. Just a really, really weird movie that I do not like at all. This is, these are the 3 that, these are the 3 entries that I do not like. And this one, like I said, though, at least it's got a cool concept. It has one of the coolest kills in the series. But again, you gotta wait till the freaking end of this movie. And it's I mean, I don't think it's that long of a movie, but damn it, sure, it feels like it. It really does, because you're just not having a good time with it. So, anyways, number 8. I know a lot of people probably would rank this a lot higher. Maybe it's due to their nostalgia for it or whatever. But for me here, we're looking at Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. And I do genuinely like this movie. Like, it's really fun. They give kind of Pinhead the Freddy Krueger kind of treatment, where he's like, he's there a lot. And this kind of reminds me of like the Dream Master of, it's like the Dream Master of the Hellraiser series, where, after Dream Warriors, the success of that, Dream Master, it's like, oh, now you're getting that much more Freddy, which, if you watch my ranking of that, I love that movie, Dream Master. But in here, I think that they kind of took it way too far with Pinhead, This one, after the success of the first 2, is trying to, like, okay, let's shove Pinhead in your face. Which I'm always, like, hey, I love seeing him and everything, but he just, I don't really, it's kind of weird when he's in that statue. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think that it's weird when some of these characters are like quoting him without even having heard him say things like, oh, not quite. Like, why is not quite a Pinhead quote in this? Like, why is that like a significant thing? Like, whenever, like, that one guy who kind of has him in that statue says, Jesus Christ, and Pinhead says, not quite. Why are other characters saying that? It didn't even hear him say that like it's some important quote. Just weird. I don't like the stuff with the main character's dad. And I know, I mean, man, the Cenobites are pretty lame for the most part. Here, I do like a couple of them, quite a bit actually. Which I'll do it. I've ranked the Cenobites before, and we're gonna do an updated list of that. And I gotta say, I love like the final act though, where Pinhead, he's unleashed. That is really freaking cool. You get the iconic, Jesus Christ pose, like the Soundgarden song, whenever he's in the church, the flames going up there. And I mean, that's just and he's saying, I am the way, just really, really cool scene. One of my favorite scenes in the whole series. And, there are some really cool kills in here, but I just think it's pretty lackluster going from part 2 to this one. And I just, a lot of the characters I just don't really care for in this one. And again, I don't hate this movie. I really don't. I have a good time with it. It has a great soundtrack too. You've got a Motorhead, doing Hellraiser. You've got Armored Saints up in here at one point. And, it's a really solid soundtrack. I just don't, again, it just isn't quite as compelling to me as some of these other ones. All right, number 7. We're going to go with Hellraiser Judgment. And, man, I really dig this one. I think the guy did a pretty solid freaking job as Pinhead. This was, can't remember who was playing him, but he did a solid job. He didn't quite have the memorable performance of Doug Bradley, with the iconic lines or whatever, but he had a presence to him, and he had like a throne he was sitting in, which was really cool. And I love the auditor, that character. If he was considered a Cenobite, and I said it in my Cenobite ranking, I believe, if the auditor was considered a Cenobite, he would be ranking way high up there, probably in like the top 5. I loved him. He was so funny. And even some of like those other kind of, like the one in the gas mask on the back of that butcher with those blades. I love the whole concept of that house being kind of like a purgatory where you get judged. Some genuinely nasty scenes where like that dude's like pours the tears on that paper and eats it, pukes it up, and it pours on those naked chicks, and they see if they like it, and it's crazy, crazy stuff. But I love that about it. And, but the whole detective thing, it has been done before this in another entry we'll talk about. And I think that entry did it better than this. And maybe it didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just feeling that way because it did it first. And that's kind of how I've seen that movie several times. But I don't know. This one, it feels like a recycled kind of thing that they've done here. They're even finding like little pieces of body parts and stuff, kind of like they were finding the fingers in, Hellraiser Inferno. But I do really, really like this movie. It has a lot of cool concepts. They kind of add some more like lore to the series with like, that angel at the end who Pinhead really badassly, if that's even a word, it's not, but, pulls the pins and gives her a crown of thorns. Really, really cool stuff. So this is a great movie. I remember seeing this for the first time when it, popped on Netflix, and I was really impressed. And it was just a big step up, coming after Revelations. So, all right. Entry number 6. I just had a place marker there for that. Because, again, didn't come out in DVD, and I had a hard time placing this one because I freaking love the new Hellraiser. I guess it's a remake, I was hearing rumors that it wasn't going to be. It was going to be like a continuation and possibly have Pinhead be Kirsty, which would have been cool. But no, I think it is just a remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's a great freaking movie. And I remember at first when they announced Pinhead's going to be a girl, I was like, what the hell? But then people are telling me like, oh, well, in the novel, it's more of like Pinhead's more of an entity, not, a genderless entity. And I'm like, okay, but still, that is a little weird. That's kind of a jarring change from the character we've seen on films. Then I saw the trailer and I was like, okay, I think it's going to be just fine. And we get a really, really cool, just awesome movie with some cool Cenobites, which we'll see. And I love how they all have like a different, entirely different aesthetic than any of the other Cenobites. Instead of like the more BDSM, bondage kind of look that all the other Cenobites have, this is like more of a surgical approach where these Cenobites, it's their skin that's really like kind of their clothing, really gnarly looking. And I think the girl who played Pinhead did a fantastic job. The voice is like bone chilling. There's that crazy, just, makes you cringe, this scene where she pulls out one of the needles and sticks it in that girl's throat, and it shows like a shot inside her throat, it going through. Crazy stuff. As far as the plot goes, I think it's pretty cool. It's about, kind of a recovering junkie or whatever, or an alcoholic. They kind of hint at her being both, where she, gets tricked by her boyfriend to go fetch this box and ends up taking her brother. It leads them back to this house where this rich guy lived, and it has all these like weird like closing doors and hidden little areas. And, the Cenobites are coming after, because she's got to offer up some people. And I think it is pretty cool. Pretty cool, but kind of weird that it counts when you're offering up these Cenobites, as they find out as the movie progresses. And one of my favorite things this movie does is talk about the other configurations. It really goes in depth and shows them, obviously the Lament configuration is the one we're most familiar with, but I can't remember the names of them off the top of the head, but there was off my top of the head. Goodness. I'm getting scrambled here. I can't remember the names of the other configurations off the top of my head, but, there were some really cool looking things, kind of cool looking designs of it, and they all kind of had a different thing. There was like one with love, you want life back, really cool stuff. And of course, the one I do know off the top of my head is the Leviathan. And man, I like cheered it on, watching this thing. Whenever the Leviathan came down there at the end and was just coming down, I was like, oh my God, we got some Hellraiser 2 call outs. And, even at the ending where that big rich guy was kind of like crucified or whatever, and maybe turning into a Cenobite, it makes me wonder, is there a sequel to this? Is he going to kind of be the Dr. Chenard who was in Hellbound? I would totally be on board with that and hope they do that, because I think this one was great enough to have a sequel. Now, one of the probably negative things I have to say about it is I think it did run like pretty freaking long, like 2 hours. There's maybe some exploring of that house or whatever, or some little filler parts they could kind of, maybe cut out to kind of shorten this thing a little bit, because, it is an investment. I just don't think it warranted maybe a 2 hour runtime. I think it could have even possibly like straight up ranked up a little bit higher for me, because there are some parts I'm like, all right, I get what's going on here. Like, let's, move along. But overall, I'm so glad we got an awesome Hellraiser movie. And I'm genuinely surprised and glad it shocked me, and glad it surprised me and exceeded my expectations. And coming up here at number 6, I mean, damn, I just did not expect that. But now we're up in our top 5, and I really struggled. And, y'all might think I'm crazy for this, but my number 5 is part 5, Inferno. And, obviously, Doug Bradley's up in this one as Pinhead. And he's not really in this one a lot either, but the scenes he is in are just incredible yet again. But I really dig this weird, trippy detective story. I think it does it quite a bit better than Judgment. And it's just, man, I'll never forget when I first, saw this one. And this one's guilty, before I get there, but this one's the first one that's guilty of one of those recycled scripts, I believe. So, and you can really tell, because it definitely feels like a different movie, almost like a side story to the Hellraiser series. But whenever I first saw this thing, I was like, man, that was kind of freaking cool and really weird. It has a really weird, dreamlike kind of feel to it the entire time. You get some of my favorite Cenobites up in here. Really creepy stuff. a character. He's an asshole, you know. He's doing all kinds of crazy, you know, just nefarious stuff, and that's why he's involved in this whole thing. Of course, you find out he's been living in his own personal hell because he tries to kill himself and he wakes right back up, you know, in that hotel room where that hooker was killed by the Cenobites. And I like the mystery of the engineer. They really build that up as like this really creepy, you know, story, like that scene where where one of the people is telling a story about the engineer and how they killed someone he knew's wife or something, found her head, something along those lines. I thought that was a really cool kind of creepy sequence there, and I really dig the kind of detective thing they were going with here. And you know, I wish they maybe wouldn't have repeated it, and if they did do it better, but I think this one really nailed it. And I just kind of have a soft spot for this movie. I really dig this one. Now, number 4. Here's another one that, you know, a lot of people I've seen hate because it's also one of the ones that is one of those recycled scripts. We're talking about Part 6, Hellseeker. And what it does do that's really cool is we get to see Kirsty again come back. So, like, that is, you know, at least they did that. We get to have Kirsty and Pinhead interacting again with the same actors and actresses. Doug Bradley and what's her name? Can't remember her name off the top of my head, but the girl who plays Kirsty, Ashley Lawrence. There it is, right there. So it's cool having like them back. And this is another kind of feels like a side story kind of thing, but it doesn't do the detective thing. It does this thing where, you know, it starts off as a car wreck, and this guy, you know, losing his wife, Kirsty, and he's already getting questioned by the police and stuff, and, you know, you're initially thinking, like, what the hell? You know, like, what did this guy do? As you go along, you find out, oh, he's done some pretty messed up stuff, cheating on her constantly, you know, all kinds of stuff. And he just, you know, and it turns out that he planned this whole thing with his buddy from work for, you know, to get her inheritance that she had. And along the way, you just get some really cool moments. I guess it's not a kill, right? But I love the scene where they're at the acupuncture place and Pinhead pulls out that needle and just jams it into like the throat. I mean, so freaking cool. You get a pretty good amount of Pinhead in this one, and the Cenobites, and with some really creepy moments that I like. And I just love kind of the reunion. It kind of, Kirsty's always been one of my favorite final girls. She's a badass in those first 2 films, big time. And, you know, she keeps being a badass for the time she's in here. And, you know, it's cool seeing her out trick this douchebag who she's, you know, married to, who's been doing all this crazy stuff, and get his soul, you know, sold to Pinhead. So I really dig this movie. I have a good time with it. This was one of the ones I recently rewatched again, and I have a lot of fun with it. And I rewatched it again because a lot of people just were kind of shitting on it. And I'm like, am I missing something every time? I've really enjoyed this one, and I still just really dig it. You know, enough to make it up here in my top 4. Top 3. This is always hard stuff here. I've had all these kind of mixed up before. I can't remember again how I ranked them in my last video, but here's how I'm feeling with them right now. Number 3, we're going with Hellraiser 4, Bloodline. And I just, you know, you think Pinhead in space, oh my God, that's going to be dumb. But it works here because it's going through these timelines, the bloodline, like the title says, of La Marchante, or however you say his name, the guy who built this box. And it's, you know, you start off in like these, it starts off kind of in the space thing and showing the latest in the bloodline there. And then it kind of, it's kind of like in sections here. You get like the section in like the 1800s or whatever the hell, you know, where that creepy, like, Lord Master, whoever that guy is, you know, that who wears the freaking George Washington type wig, but he's creepy as hell and has like his little sidekick guy, and they make a sacrifice and summon Angelique, one of my favorite Cenobites and characters in the whole franchise. She's so creepy, and she's just a straight up demon, you know, that's possessed the body, and you know, of course, it ends up becoming a Cenobite full on. So I think she's just poses a threat. I love Pinhead's interactions with her, which we really get a lot of in this kind of middle section, which is probably my favorite section, like the 90s, which is kind of, present time when this came out in 94, I believe. Yeah, and it just, I mean, Pinhead, it's showing he'll do whatever it takes. He even holds the kid's, the guy's kid hostage just to, like, he's like, give me the box. Like, he's not afraid to do anything to get the freaking box. Chasing him around and everything. And then you get, of course, in the space section, it goes back to that. And some really awesome stuff. You get some cool kills in there. I love the Chatterer dog. Really, really cool kind of take on the Chatterer. That's where you get, Angelique is a full-on Cenobite. Pinhead gets some cool moments. All these Cenobites running around and they're trying to stop them. And, I love how, like, the space station kind of folds into, that satellite folds into a box and seals Pinhead away. Just a really weirdly and awesome, horror character in space movie, which really, I say the same thing. If you see my Friday the 13th rankings, I say the same thing with Jason X. It's a really fun one. Even though that's nowhere near my favorite Friday the 13th, but I like that movie too. But I know there's other franchises that go out in space, and it's like, okay, like, why? Why is this something you're doing? But it actually straight up fit here. And that makes this just one of my freaking favorite ones. Love going back to this one. In my number 2 is part 2, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. And man, I was debating on flipping this and the original. I mean, these two are just all-time classics. God, this one, going down to hell, and the labyrinth of Leviathan, you see all kinds of crazy stuff like that. The creepy scene, that dreamlike scene where you're seeing like a clown and a jester laughing. You see like that baby with its eyes and its mouth stitched closed. Creepy stuff, and this one picks up right after, the first one. So they're awesome, like double feature to watch. And you get a lot of Pinhead and the Cenobites in here, since they're all kind of running around down there. Obviously Kirsty's back in this. You get, you do kind of get, well, first, I'll say Dr. Chenard, another one of my favorite Cenobites, and just evil dude. I still get like, oh man, I get the creepy crawlies on my skin whenever I see the guy who literally thinks there are bugs under his skin, is just tearing his skin off and scratching it off, and with a knife, that Dr. Chenard's just watching him, in that mattress to summon the Cenobites. That is always like, such a gnarly and gory scene that's a really cool and fits in the the aesthetic of the franchise. And Dr. Chenard's thinking he's becoming all powerful up in here, and of course eventually turns into a Cenobite and is taking out the Cenobites. Revealing that like Chatterer 2 here is a freaking kid. It's like, what the hell? And then that showing like their human forms, which is one I'm not really the biggest on. I don't really like the kind of how they're turning Pinhead kind of like a hero kind of near the end here, where it's like, and I get it, and I don't think it's like a major problem, but just give me my evil Pinhead with no sympathy whatsoever towards this character. That's how I want him and enjoy him the most. But again, that's not really a big problem. It's cool for the plot line and whatever. And I just really, this is an all-time classic. Love putting it on. The first time I ever watched this movie, a long time ago, I liked it better than the first one, and I've gone back and forth over the years. But lately, I've definitely been feeling like this one is still my favorite. I know I ranked this as number 1 in my last video. That's one I do know, and I'm just going to keep it that way because, my God, just all-time horror classic. It is gory as all get out, from, Frank coming out of the freaking attic with his skin, and getting all his skin back, and just seeing that skeleton rise up out of there, all the slime and the chains pulling him apart, the blood. Just everything about this movie is so gory, badass, creepy. And I'll never forget the first time I ever watched this movie. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be like a slasher thing. Pinhead's kind of like a killer or whatever. Cool, I'm down for it. And I was genuinely just surprised, and I was like, in a good way. I'm like, oh, this is not a slasher. This is something different. This is more of like a just its own, like, it's got a whole story and a plot, not just your typical slasher. In fact, it's not a slasher at all. It's just an awesome freaking movie about some really messed up people with Frank and Julia. You know, she's killing people to get Frank back to life. And, you know, Kirsty's caught up in the middle of it, you know, since that's Frank's her dad's brother and Julia's her stepmom. And it's like all this plot going on. And in the meantime, you get this insane reveal. One of my favorite movie scenes of all time. When the Cenobites first appear, they're all, you know, doing their thing. Chatter's over here putting his fingers in Kirsty's mouth, was just creepy as hell, you know, and Pinhead saying just the line, you know, "We'll tear your soul apart." Just freaking classic. And I know he's not in it maybe as much as Hellbound or Bloodline or some of these others, but it's kind of the spectacle. It's like when this Pinhead and the Cenobites do appear, like in the middle of the film, and then of course at the finale and the ending, it's like, oh my God, you know, I fucked up. They're here. Like, it feels like a big deal. And just, this is the exact characterization of Pinhead and all these Cenobites that I like. I just, ruthless, there to do their job and get it going. They don't give a damn. They even try to take Kirsty, even though she kept up her end of the deal. They don't even care, you know. So that's how ruthless and evil, sick and twisted they are. And this is, again, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. One of my favorite horror movie characters in Pinhead. He's just such a badass. I get that Doug Bradley's not going to ever come back to the role. Like he said, you know, he got tired of kind of being in those, you know, straight to VHS, straight to DVD ones or whatever, and not liking the scripts and just kind of having to star in some sucky movies, which I totally get. But, you know, he nailed his status in our hearts, you know, as the true Pinhead and the best one. And with all, you know, he's in 8 straight movies, and it's this one right here that made him return that many times. It makes him one of the greatest horror movie villains of all time. But yeah, guys, there we go. That is it right there. That's where that new Hellraiser ranks. We got, again, I'm not sure if those changed up too much from the last video I did ranking these before this new one was out. It was a while ago that I did that. But I am going to be doing an updated ranking of the Cenobites coming up in the near future. We'll just kind of see when that goes down. Because, you know, we've got album reviews, wrestling reviews, horror figure photography, all that stuff kind of scattered out through in here. And I want to see your guys' rankings, you know, especially you guys who we talked about it last time, and I saw your rankings down there the last time we looked at these. I want to see your guys' thoughts about this new Hellraiser, and I want to see where it places in your rankings, because I know it has been praised a lot, by me included. You know, it didn't quite crack the top 5. It almost did. I was really going back and forth, but I think number 6 is a good spot for it, and I think it's a great freaking movie. And I know this franchise gets a lot of shit, since it does have a lot of, like, it has quite, you know, for me, only 3 bad movies, really bad ones. But the rest of them I like in, you know, some way or another and enjoy watching. But I know most people, they're more in the camp of, you know, 5 through, like, Inferno through Revelations are all shit. But I happen to like some of those in-between ones. So that makes it to where it's a pretty, with 11 entries and 3 of them sucking, yeah, that sucks that there are those 3 that are terrible. But the bulk of the franchise I really like and really enjoy. So Hellraiser is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I'd say I definitely lean more towards like Nightmare on Elm Street's my favorite franchise of all time. You know, Friday 13th's right up there too. Texas Chainsaw, Halloween. But, you know, but Hellraiser's up in the running there for me. Is like, if someone were to be like, hey, pick your 5 or 6 franchises that you're watching for the rest of your life, horror franchises, it's going to be up in there. And, you know, even if it was only the first movie I liked, you know, I would be like, man, I might want to even include that there just because of that first movie, because that's how damn good it is. But anyways, guys, yeah, leave your list down there. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and let's talk about this stuff down there. I really want to kind of, you know, spark up some conversation about your guys' thoughts on the new Pinhead and this new one, and what your guys' thoughts on the movie, and what maybe predictions you have for the new one, and of course where it lies on your rankings. But anyways, guys, stay tuned. Like I said, we're going to be doing the updated ranking every Cenobite list. We got Metallica's Master of Puppets going to be reviewed coming up here, and we've got all kinds of fun stuff coming. So anyways, thanks guys, like and subscribe.